Well now, I suppose it's time I finally tell the truth. Lord knows I've carried this secret so long, it's grown roots in my bones. My name's Mabel Louise Carter. I'm 82 years old, born and raised in a dusty little patch of Alabama that most folks wouldn't even spot on a map. And if you're watching, baby, go ahead and like this video, comment where in the world you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's true life story. 'Cause this ain't just my story, it's the story of too many women who had to smile through the silence. This story starts with my daughter-in-law, Stephanie. She married my only son, Thomas, back in 2004. I never liked her from the start, too slick with her smile, too cold in the eyes. But you try telling your grown son he's sleepin' next to a snake. He won't listen. No, sir. He just pulls away, further and further, until all you see of him is on holidays and birthdays, and even that starts feelin' forced. I thought I'd buried the worst of my past, until Stephanie went and cracked it wide open. Last spring, she thought it'd be a good idea to rob me. Though this old woman was just a soft target, sittin' in her creaky house with a lifetime of secrets and a small lockbox tucked behind the pantry. But she didn't expect what she'd find there. No, ma'am. Let me take you back. It was 1957. I was just 14. We lived out near Possum Creek, a 2-bedroom shack with no insulation and a rusted-out pickup parked out front. My daddy, Clive, was a hard man. Not in the working sense, though he kept a job at the sawmill. I mean hard, like cold steel. He didn't speak more than 5 words at a time, and his hands only knew how to hurt. My mama, bless her soul, passed away when I was 10. Died birthing a baby that didn't make it either. After that, it was just me and Clive. He'd sit in that chair by the wood stove every night, nursing a jar of moonshine, staring at nothing like it had offended him. I learned quickly not to make noise. I learned even quicker not to cry. But even silence couldn't protect me the night he came home late, soaked in sweat and rage. He slammed the screen door so hard it ripped the hinges, and next thing I knew, his belt was off and I was on the floor. I'll spare you the details. I reckon you can imagine the kind of terror that followed. It didn't just happen once. It became a pattern, like the seasons. Every time I smelled pine sap and blood, I knew it was coming. I never told a soul. Who was there to tell? You'd be surprised what a girl can hide when no one looks close. The only kindness I had was Miss Evelyn, the librarian in town. She saw the bruises, the broken gaze. She never said much, just handed me books. One day, she gave me the diary of Aunt Frank, and I read it 3 times through. That little girl, hiding in silence, hoping someone would save her. It felt like looking in a mirror. The real change came one winter night. I was 17, and Clive had passed out cold in his chair. I stood over him with my mama's old cast-iron skillet in my hands, heart poundin' so loud I thought it'd wake the dead. I didn't swing it. I couldn't. Instead, I ran. Barefoot, coatless, with frost stingin' my skin like the devil's own claws. I ran until I collapsed outside the church and Pastor Harold found me. They put me up in a boarding house, and I got work cleaning houses. Years passed. I met Walter, my husband, at the feed store. He was the kindest soul I'd ever known. And when I told him my story, every ugly bit of it, he just held me and said, "You survived. That's what matters." We had Thomas a year later. I vowed that the child would never feel an ounce of what I had. I raised him with love and God and soft lullabies, not a fist or a belt. But trauma's tricky. You think it's buried, but it's just waitin' in the dark. Now, back to Stephanie. She came over one afternoon when she thought I was at my quilting circle. Broke in through the back door with some cheap gloves and a kitchen knife. Like this was a movie. What she didn't know was that my neighbor, Darlene, has one of them motion sensor cameras on her porch. Caught the whole thing. She tore through my drawers, opened every cabinet like a banshee. Then she found the lockbox, my rusted tin box I kept behind a row of canned beans. She must have thought she hit gold. Inside? Letters. Photographs. My mama's ring. And a single, yellowed sheet of lined paper I never showed a soul until now. It was a confession. Written by Clive 2 weeks before he wrapped his pickup round an oak tree in 1975. A letter addressed to whoever finds it, where he confessed to sins no man can wash clean, and named me as the one he hurt. He said he was sorry, but sorry don't fix what's broken. Stephanie found that letter, found the truth buried in ink and shame. And when I walked in and saw her holding it, pale as a ghost, I just looked her square in the eye and said, "Now you know." I didn't press charges. That would have made it all messier. But I told Thomas everything. Showed him the letter. The photos. The bruises I still see when I close my eyes. He cried. He held me. And for the first time in years, he saw me not just as his mother, but as a survivor. Stephanie left him a month later. Guess she couldn't live in a house where the truth echoed off the walls. I reckon if you're still here, you've already heard the worst of it. What my daddy did, how I survived it, and how my son's wife tried to rob me only to unearth the truth I'd buried deeper than any treasure. But what I didn't tell you, what Stephanie saw after she read my daddy's letter, was the photo taped to the bottom of that rusted old lockbox. She knew him. And when she saw his face, her mouth opened like she was gonna scream, but no sound came out. She just stared at me, tears wellin' up, that kitchen knife tremblin' in her hand. Then she dropped everything and ran like hell, leavin' the front door wide open and my whole damn past scattered across the linoleum. That photo. It's haunted me longer than the letter ever did. Let me take y'all back again. Sit with me for a spell, if you've got the time. This one's heavy, but I promise, what I'm about to say needs to be heard. And if it hits home, don't be afraid to hit that like button or leave a comment. I'm not tellin' this for sympathy, I'm tellin' it so maybe someone out there won't feel so alone. That picture was taken in 1973. I was 28, married to Walter, raising our boy Thomas, and workin' part-time at the diner over on Route 14. It was the first time I ever saw him again. His name was Lester. You won't find his name in any family Bible or photo album. No one spoke about him, not even me, not even in prayer. But he was my brother. Half-brother, technically. Born 2 years before me from one of my daddy's side dalliances, as the old women in church used to say. I didn't even know he existed until I was 13, and he came to live with us for a short spell, right after Mama died. Said he'd gotten in trouble in Georgia, needed a place to lay low. He was 17 when I was 13. That should have meant something different. Like maybe he would have protected me. Maybe he would have stood between me and Clive's fury. But no. He was worse. I don't think I've ever said that out loud before. See, Clive taught Lester things. Passed them down like a sickness. A generational curse wrapped in silence and shame. Lester stayed with us for 6 months. And in that half year, he hurt me in ways I still can't say without feelin' like I'm gonna choke. And when he left, I prayed he'd die slow and alone. I thought I was done with him. Until 1973. One rainy afternoon, I was talking Thomas home from the general store, and I stopped at the gas pump. That's when I saw him, older, balding, and thicker in the face, but it was him. Standing there like a ghost made flesh, pumpin' gas, like the past hadn't just walked up and slapped me. He saw me too. Smirked. Said, "Ain't you Clive's little girl?" I couldn't speak. I grabbed Thomas and drove off with the groceries still sittin' on the roof of the car. But something changed in me that day. I realized he wasn't gone, and neither was what he did. I started writin' everything down. Every detail I remembered, every scar he left, every sick thing he said. I tucked it away in that lockbox with the photo I snapped from a distance the day I saw him again. Just in case. For proof. For justice I didn't believe would ever come. So when Stephanie opened that box and found that photo, that blurry, grainy picture of a man she clearly recognized, that's when I knew this story wasn't over. Later that night, after she ran, I sat in my chair and stared at that photo for a long time. The next morning, I called Thomas, told him to come alone. He sat at my table, jaw tight, confusion in his eyes. I handed him the photo. He stared at it, tilted his head, blinked. Then he said something that made my blood go cold. "Mama, this is Stephanie's uncle. He used to come around when she was little. She said he disappeared when she was 12. I felt the world tilt. You could have knocked me over with a whisper. Was it a coincidence? Or had that man, the same man who hurt me, gone on to hurt her too? I didn't want to believe it. But something in her eyes that day, that wild, broken panic, started to make a cruel sort of sense. So I did what I hadn't done in decades. I picked up the phone and called a name I swore I'd never speak again. Evelyn. The librarian from all those years ago. God bless her, still alive, still sharp as ever. She didn't sound surprised to hear from me. Said she'd been waitin' on this call. And then she told me something that nearly stopped my old heart. "Mabel, you need to know. Lester didn't disappear. He was murdered. And they found something on his body they never identified, until now." That's when I heard the click of Evelyn's voice trembling. She whispered. It was a necklace. One of a kind. Handcrafted. And I remember it well, because you were wearin' it the day you ran barefoot into my library with frostbite and bruises. Y'all. I never saw that necklace again after that night. I'd thrown it away. Or, I thought I had. So how did Lester die wearing it? If you're still here, Lord bless you for listenin'. Hit that like button and drop a comment if you think you know what really happened to him. And please, subscribe. It knocked the wind out of me worse than anything Clive or Lester ever did. Let me set the scene. It was 2 days after that phone call with Miss Evelyn. I'd barely slept. I kept dreamin' of that old necklace, the one I swore I'd buried in the bottom of a creek the same week I ran away from Clive's house. I remember tossin' it in, watchin' it disappear beneath the black water like a bad dream. So how in God's name did they find it on Lester's body? I sat by the window all morning, starin' out at the gravel road like I was waitin' on a sign. And right when the sun hit the oak trees behind the house just so, tinnin' them gold, she showed up. A woman. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Tall, with long, silver-streaked black hair braided down her back. She wore a plain denim jacket, dust on her boots, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much of this world. I knew her before she said a word. I hadn't seen her in over 40 years, but blood remembers blood. "Hello, Mabel," she said, and my voice caught in my throat. June. June was my cousin, Aunt Delilah's girl. We were like sisters once, back when we were young, before life turned us into strangers. She disappeared from Alabama when she was 16, said she was runnin' off to Nashville to sing blues and never lookin' back. What I didn't know was who she ran off with. That day on my porch, her voice broke like dry wood when she told me. I was with him, Mabel. With Lester. For 3 years. And I was there the night he died. I sat her down in my kitchen, poured 2 cups of strong coffee with too much sugar, just like we used to drink as girls. My hands shook as I passed her the cup. She took a long sip, set it down, and looked me square in the eye. I didn't know what he did to you, she whispered. Not until it was too late. I asked her what happened, and she told me. She said they'd lived in Georgia for a while, then Louisiana, bouncin' from trailer to trailer, drinkin' too much and fightin' like animals. She said he had a temper, one that got worse after dark, especially if the whiskey ran dry. But one night, everything changed. She caught him with a girl, a child, in the back room of someone's house party. June said she saw red, screamed, fought him, tried to get the girl out. Lester snapped, came at her with a switchblade he always kept tucked in his boot. But June didn't freeze. She ran. And 2 days later, they found him in the woods near the levee. Throat slit. Necklace around his neck. My necklace. The one I threw away when I was 17. I sat there, heart beatin' wild in my ears. How'd he get it? I asked. She didn't blink. He had it when I met him. Said it was a gift from someone he used to teach lessons to. I wanted to vomit. That necklace belonged to my mama. I wore it every day, till the night Clive beat me so bad it broke right off my neck. I never saw it again. Which means, Clive gave it to Lester. As a gift. For what he did to me. I was cryin' now. Shaken. My coffee went cold in my hands. June reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old. Faded. With handwriting I recognized like it was seared into my bones. Clive's. Another letter. Written 2 weeks before his death. She slid it across the table, whisperin', I think you need to see this. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. My eyes danced across the page, struggling to make sense of what I was readin'. He said he was sorry not just for what he did to me, but for what he taught Lester to do. He confessed to more children. More girls. And then, near the bottom, one sentence burned itself into my memory forever. She knows. The one you call niece. She saw it. And she's waitin'. I looked up at June, barely able to breathe. Who's he talkin' about? She stared at me, her face pale. Then she whispered, Stephanie. Stephanie isn't just your daughter-in-law, Mabel. She's Clive's granddaughter. My heart stopped. My ears rang. I stood up, knockin' the coffee mug to the floor. It shattered like the pieces of my past, and I stared down at them, numb. Stephanie, my son's wife. My granddaughter? How? How did Clive? But before I could ask another question, there was a knock at the door. Loud. Slow. Deliberate. June looked at me, panic in her eyes. You weren't followed, were you? I asked. She didn't answer. I reached for the curtain, peeled it back, just enough to see. And there he was. A man in a black hat. Staring straight at the house. Holding something in his hand. Y'all, this ain't over. If you're still with me, please like, comment, subscribe. I need y'all now more than ever. Let's go back to the moment I opened that door. It was dusk. The last bit of sunlight was bleeding out behind the trees, casting long shadows across my front porch like arms reachin' for the past. I pulled the door open, heart thunderin' so loud it drowned out everything else. And there he stood. A tall man, lean, maybe mid-40s, with pale eyes and a face I couldn't place right away. He wore a black hat pulled low, dust on his shoulders, and in his hand was the lockbox. My lockbox. The one Stephanie broke into. I blinked hard, my throat dry. Who are you? He didn't answer right away. Just handed me the box, like it burned his hands. Then said real quiet like, "You left this open. Thought you might want to know what else was in it." Then he looked past me into the house. Saw June standin' behind me, clutchin' the counter, her eyes wide. That's when his face changed. Hardened. And that smile? It was small. Cold. "Didn't expect to see her here," he said. June stepped forward, her voice a rasp. Micah? Micah? Suddenly, I remembered. Micah Lee. Stephanie's younger brother. I'd only met him once, years ago at their wedding. Quiet kid, awkward. Stayed in the corner, barely spoke. I thought nothin' of him at the time. But now, standing on my porch with that box in his hand and secrets in his eyes, he looked like a man with a mission. He pushed the box into my chest and whispered, "You missed a false bottom." I stepped back inside, June lockin' the door behind him. Micah followed us to the kitchen. I opened the box, hands shaken, and felt along the lining. And sure enough, there it was. A hidden latch. Inside, wrapped in an oil-stained rag, was a small cassette tape. Old. Labeled in faded pencil. 1975, Clive and Lester, confession. I felt the room spin. June gasped. Micah just nodded, like this was confirmation of something he'd suspected all along. "I found it years ago," he said. "Stephanie played it once when she was drunk. She thought I was asleep on the porch. Clive recorded everything. The abuse. The threats. Even the plan to pass it down. Like it was some kind of legacy." He looked at me then, eyes red, jaw clenched. "You're not the only one, Mabel. They came after all of us." My legs gave out, and I sank into the old kitchen chair. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't cry. The room was too still, too loud with everything unsaid. Micah placed a small tape player on the table and looked at me like he was asking permission. I nodded, and he pressed play. The tape crackled to life with a low hiss. Then Clive's voice. Clear. Calm. Cold as death. "This is how you keep control, Lester. You don't ask. You take. You break 'em early. Make sure they never speak, never rise up. That way you own 'em, even in their silence." I covered my mouth as bile rose in my throat. Then Lester's voice slurred. "What about Mabel? She's gettin' older. She looks at me funny now. She'll forget. They always forget once the pain gets deep enough. And what if she doesn't? Then you do what I did with her mama. You end it." The tape snapped off. Silence filled the room like smoke. I was sobbin' now, tears I'd held back for 50 years pourin' down like rain. June turned away, grippin' the wall. Micah's fists were clenched tight, jaw twitchin'. I finally found my voice. "My mama didn't die in childbirth, did she?" Micah shook his head. "No, ma'am. They lied about everything." I stood up, rage and sorrow crashin' inside me like waves against a cliff. They wanted to erase us. All of us. June looked at me then, real soft. "Mabel, this ain't just a family curse. It's a network. It goes deeper than you think. You remember that old orphanage near Clayton Road?" I nodded. "The one that shut down in the 80s? Clive worked there before the mill. Before you were born. And so did Lester. That place, it fed this sickness. And we weren't the only ones they touched." Before I could speak, the door rattled again. But this time, not a knock. A pound. 3 times. Heavy. Angry. Micah's face went pale. "That's not good," he whispered. Then from outside, a voice. Male. Deep. Rough like gravel. "Y'all opened the box, didn't you? That was a mistake. Y'all. If you're still here, if you've made it through this part of my truth, please like this video. Leave a comment if your heart's shaken, and subscribe to this channel." Now, where were we? Right. The door. And the voice on the other side. "Y'all opened the box, didn't you? That was a mistake." Micah rushed to the window, barely peeling back the curtain. His voice was low, tight. "There's 2 men. One's got a bat. The other, I think he's carryin' a gun." My knees nearly gave out. Not because I feared for my life, but because I knew exactly who sent them. June whispered, "The Brotherhood." "See, that's what they called it." Quietly. In the dark. The sick little ring Clive and Lester belonged to. Started in the backwoods orphanage near Clayton Road and stretched across counties like wrought under paint. We didn't have time to run. I didn't have time to think. Just react. Micah grabbed the cassette tape off the table and stuffed it in his coat. "We can't let them get this." June handed me the photo of Lester. "Hide it. Deep. We'll explain later." The front door shook again, this time with more force. "Open up. We just want to talk." Bull. I've heard that voice before. Calm, coaxin' right before the pain comes. Micah pulled open the cellar door in the kitchen. "We go down now, or we go down forever." So we ran. The cellar was musty, lined with canned tomatoes and memory. We crouched behind an old wooden shelf, holding our breath as footsteps thudded above our heads. The front door gave way. They were inside. I could hear them. Search everything. One set of boots walked heavy, deliberate. The other shuffled, like he wasn't fully sure this was a good idea. I held June's hand so tight her knuckles turned white. Then, glass shattered. A crash. And a shout. "We found the lockbox. She's got the letters." "Forget the box. Where's the damn tape?" They flipped furniture. Kicked cabinets. I heard one of them pull open the cellar door. A beam of light pierced through the dark. I held my breath. He stepped down 2 stairs. Then stopped. Suddenly, a voice shouted from outside. "Sheriff's car." Someone called the law. Chaos erupted. Footsteps scrambled. The screen door slammed. Tires screeched down my gravel drive. Micah exhaled hard, sweat pouring down his face. That was me. I texted Darlene before we went under. She must have called. We waited in silence until the house went still again. Then we climbed out, hearts still poundin'. The sheriff, a good man named Parker, took our statement. But the Brotherhood had long arms in this town. The men wore masks. Left no prints. But they made one mistake. They didn't get the tape. Micah handed it to me once Parker was gone. "We need to copy it. Get it out. If anything happens to us, someone has to know." I nodded. I felt like a soldier now. Or maybe just a grandmother with nothing left to lose. That night, June stayed in the guest room. Micah sat on the porch, shotgun across his lap. I stayed up rereading Clive's letters, trying to stitch together the pieces of a life that was never really mine. That's when the phone rang. Old rotary thing on the wall. Loud in the stillness. I answered. No one spoke for a moment. Then a voice I hadn't heard in decades. "Mabel." I froze. "I'm sorry. I couldn't breathe." "Walter." My husband, Thomas's father, dead since 1991. Or so I thought. Y'all, I don't know what to say. I need a minute. But if you're still here, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let's go back. It was almost midnight. June was asleep in the guest room. Micah still sittin' on the porch like a guardian angel with a shotgun. The rotary phone on my kitchen wall rang like a scream in the silence. I picked it up. Mabel. It was a whisper. Old. Tired. But unmistakable. I'm sorry. I said his name like a prayer and a curse all at once. Walter. The line crackled. They lied to you. I had to disappear. For you. For Thomas. Now let me tell you, my Walter was the only safe thing I'd ever known. I married him in 1959 when I was just 20. He worked at the hardware store, coached Little League, and brought me wildflowers from the side of the road every Thursday like clockwork. In 1991, I got a call sayin' he died in a car wreck while drivin' back from a trip to Montgomery. Closed casket. Burned beyond recognition, they said. But I knew something was off. No autopsy. No real police report. Just a pastor, a sealed box, and a hole in my heart. Now here he was. On the line. Alive. They were gonna kill me, Walter said. Because I found out what Clive was doin'. What he did to you. To others. I sat down slowly, my knees like water. I confronted him. He laughed, Mabel. Laughed in my face. Said I married damaged goods and should be grateful. My chest tightened. I left that night. Told a man I trusted in law enforcement. Turns out, he was in on it. I only escaped because a nurse named Reva helped me disappear. She made the body switch. Told them I was too far gone for ID. I whispered, "Why didn't you come back?" The silence was heavy. They followed me. Watched the house. I couldn't risk it. Not with you and Thomas in the open. So I stayed gone. But I've been watchin'. And now, it's startin' again, Mabel. He paused. I heard birdsong. Wherever he was, it was mornin'. I've got a name. The one behind the Brotherhood now. The man financing it. He's holdin' meetings again. Recruiting. He thinks the past is buried. But it's about to come alive. He gave me the name. And I dropped the phone. I won't say it here. Not yet. But you'd know it. Small-town politician. Bible quotin' sweetheart on camera, but behind the scenes? He's runnin' it all. Walter said he had a list. Survivors. Enablers. Current threats. Proof. And he was sendin' someone to meet me. Someone I could trust. I asked who. He hesitated. Thomas. My heart stopped. Our son. My baby. My Thomas, who I hadn't heard from in weeks, not since Stephanie ran off. Walter said he'd finally told him the truth. Said Thomas had questions. Said Thomas was on his way. I stayed up the whole night waitin'. June stirred once, whispered, "Everything okay?" I lied and said yes. Micah came inside at dawn and made eggs. But Thomas never showed. By noon I got a call. From the county jail. Sheriff Parker's voice was tight, nervous. "Mrs. Carter, you need to come down here. It's about your son." I asked him if Thomas was hurt. He paused. "Ma'am, he's fine. But he's sayin' some very strange things. About you. About a tape. About a dead man named Lester. And Mrs. Carter." He turned himself in. "Y'all. I don't know what's goin' on. I don't know if someone got to him. Or if the truth broke him in ways I couldn't see comin'. But I'm headed to that jail now. If you're still listenin', bless you. I know this story's heavy. I wish I could hand you a slice of peach cobbler and hold your hand through it, 'cause Lord knows, I need someone holdin' mine right now. Before I go on, hit that like button if you've ever had a loved one break your heart with the truth. Leave me a comment if you've faced something too painful to even speak aloud. And please subscribe, sugar. We're gettin' close to the edge now, and I don't want you missin' the fall. The ride to the county jail was quiet. June begged to come, but I told her no. I needed to face this alone. Micah gave me his cross necklace. Said, whatever happens in there, don't forget who you are. I parked out front, my hands tremblin' so bad I couldn't get the keys out the ignition. The same jail where they once locked up my brother for spittin' on a sidewalk back in '62. Same red dirt lot. Same crooked steps. But this time, it was my boy sittin' behind those bars. When the guard led me back, I saw him. Thomas. My baby. My blood. Only, he didn't look like my baby anymore. His eyes were darker, not from bruises, but from truths too old for someone his age to carry. His hair was longer. His hands shook when he saw me. I sat down, heart poundin' like revival drums. Mama, he said. That one word made my tears come. I wanted to rush in and hold him, but something in his face stopped me. A wall. Like he'd been livin' in a place I couldn't reach. I'm sorry, he said. For disappearin'. For what Stephanie did. I didn't know. I didn't want to believe it. I whispered, where've you been? He looked me dead in the eyes. With Daddy. My whole body went cold. He told me everything, Mama. About Clive. About the Brotherhood. About the recordings. And about what happened to you. I swallowed hard. Shame still clings to a soul, even when it ain't your fault. He showed me the list. The names. The money trails. Mama, one of 'em is sittin' in our town hall. Another's runnin' the bank. They've been buyin' silence for decades. But they missed one thing. He leaned closer. The tape. Y'all remember the tape? The one Stephanie tried to steal. The one I buried in that flour tin under the old oak? Turns out, Walter made a second copy. Gave it to Thomas. And what's on that tape? It's not just a confession. It's proof. Voices. Names. Clive bragged in about what he did. Talkin' about how some girls are born for it. Even laughing. My stomach turned here and that. But Thomas said there's more. There's someone bigger, Mama, he said, voice trembling. A man named Marston. He's not from Alabama. He's from up north. He bankrolls everything. Pays off the law. Uses the Brotherhood like pawns. He's the one who ordered Daddy's death. Twice. And now, he knows we're alive. Thomas said the only reason he turned himself in was because he'd been followed. Said a man with a scar on his chin and a dog tag around his neck had been watchin' him. Tryin' to intimidate him. Even broke into Walter's safe house. They're huntin' the tape. And they think Thomas has it. But what they don't know, he mailed it. To me. And it arrived this mornin' while I was drivin' to that jail. Still sittin' in my mailbox in a plain brown envelope. I stood to leave, my hands shaken worse than ever. Mama, Thomas whispered. If anything happens to me, don't let 'em bury it again. Promise me. I nodded, but my throat was too tight for words. I left him there, watchin' me through that glass. Outside, the sun was hot and high. I drove straight home. Didn't even stop to unlock the front door. I walked straight to the mailbox. I opened it, and inside was nothin'. Just bills. A church flyer. And a torn corner of an envelope with my name on it. No tape. No return address. When I saw that mailbox empty, a chill ran down my spine, like a cold river through a hollow tree. I knew right then. They were still watchin' me. Whoever this Marston was, he wasn't gone. I went back inside and locked every door, closed every blind, and for the first time in decades, I opened the cedar chest under my bed. Inside were letters from Walter. Some yellowed, some stains, but one sat at the very bottom, sealed with wax, and on the front, in his familiar shaky hand. For when they come looking again, I broke that seal like it was holy. Inside was a letter, a map, and an old Polaroid. The letter was short. Darlin', if you're reading this, I didn't make it far enough to stop them. But I did hide what matters. The truth. The whole truth. Every file, every photo, every account. It's buried beneath the preacher's shed in Ash Ridge, the same place you told me what Clive did to you that night in '58. You were 15. I never forgot. I never will. They used your pain to build a kingdom. Burn it down. W. Ash Ridge. Just the name made my chest ache. That old wooden chapel hadn't been touched in 30 years. Nobody goes there now. It's half swallowed by vines and ghost stories. I didn't sleep that night. I packed up my pistol, the same one I kept after the break-in, brought a shovel, wrote a note for June just in case, and at sunrise I drove out there. The church looked like it was prayin' for rain. Leanin' sideways, roof caved in, but still holdin' on. I found the shed, pulled back the rotten boards, and started diggin'. It didn't take long. The soil was looser than I expected, and maybe 10 inches deep. I hit something. A metal box. Rusted. Padlocked. Inside was everything Walter promised. Ledgers with Marston's name on 'em. Transfers. Payoffs. Names of victims. Names of judges. Police. Even local pastors. And right on top, a photograph of me, 15 years old, at that Brotherhood picnic, smilin', and behind me, Clive, with his hand on my back. I couldn't breathe. I sat there in that dirt for what felt like hours, holdin' that picture like it might crumble in my hands. I thought about buryin' it all again, but I didn't. Instead, I drove straight to June's house, and I told her everything. We uploaded the documents, sent copies to journalists, to watchdog groups, to lawyers. The story exploded. Within a month, Marston's name hit the news. Turns out, he wasn't just a backwoods puppet master. He had ties to lobbyists, developers, even military contractors. But now, he was exposed. He vanished not long after that. No arrests. No trials. Just gone. Some say he left the country. Others think he bought himself a new name, a new face, somewhere far from Alabama. But me? I don't care where he ran. He's gonna rot, one way or another. As for Stephanie, she pleaded guilty. Said she was manipulated. Said she thought the money would save her and Thomas. I don't know what part of her story to believe anymore. She's serving time now. Thomas got probation and therapy. He's workin' again, helpin' young men transition out of the prison system. He still wears his daddy's cross. And me? I'm still here. Old bones and all. I sit on my porch in the evening with June and Micah, drinkin' sweet tea and listenin' to the cicadas buzz like they always have. Sometimes the breeze brings back memories I'd rather forget. But most days, I feel peace. Real peace. Not 'cause the pain's gone, but 'cause I faced it. Now let me tell you this, baby. If someone ever tries to steal your voice, don't let 'em. even if it takes 50 years. Even if your own family doesn't believe you. Even if your mailbox comes up empty. The truth doesn't rot in the dirt. It waits. And one day, it rises. Thank you for listening. You didn't just hear my story. You held it. That matters more than you know. Now go hug your mama. Call your grandma. Tell your story. Because silence is how the bad ones win. But the truth? Truth makes them run. You know, sugar. Some stories take their time to be told. They sit quiet on the shelf of your chest, covered in dust, tucked between the cracks of your ribs. Not 'cause you forget, but 'cause remembering too early might break something inside you that was still trying to heal. I've carried this one for over 60 years. Not in silence, but in whispers. In old letters I never sent. In prayers I folded into my pillow at night. In the way I flinched when someone raised their voice, even if it was just to call the dogs in. Back then, the world didn't have ears for girls like me. It had rules. It was a shame. And it had men who knew how to bury the truth deep enough it wouldn't bloom, till long after they were gone. But seeds don't die in the dark. They wait. And one day, when the sun comes back, they rise. I told this story not just for me, but for the girls still holding their breath, for the women still stitching their wounds with silence, for the sons and daughters trying to make sense of a legacy made of both blood and broken glass. To you, I say, you are not your scars. You are the garden that grew around them. Legacy ain't just what you leave behind. It's what you live through. What you choose to speak when the world tells you to hush. And what you teach your babies about worth, about truth, about standing when your knees shake. So if this old voice meant something to you, if you saw yourself in these words, or your mama, or the little girl you used to be, I hope you'll leave me a note. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs a soft place to land. And subscribe, so the next story doesn't come to you in whispers, but in light. I reckon I'm not just Miss Eloise anymore. I'm every woman who stayed quiet too long. And every woman who finally spoke. This porch has held my sorrow long enough. Tonight, I leave it here. Tomorrow, I plant something new. Good night, baby. And thank you for listening.